you versus you.
Next thing you know, your mom's picking you up at 11:30 at night.
If I'm doing my best, no one can come at me.
Be objective and be your biggest critic, but you have to be your biggest advocate.
There's days where I can give literally 5%.
I call it my big five.
So how do you celebrate those small victories? This morning, we're going to talk about enjoying the journey. It kind of goes into the Olympics. It's kind of perfect because here we are.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Teams are winning gold medals. Individuals are winning gold medals. And they don't just win gold medals overnight. It's the entire process of their athletic career or their personal careers or everything that bleeds into each other. So I think that's kind of like what we're going to talk about today. And so my question for you is, how do you enjoy the journey of sports and not just honing in on the little things, but it all encompassing in your sport journey? Like, what techniques and things like that do you use to enjoy the process?
Younger, I was a right-handed batter, and then I switched to being left-handed.
Gotcha.
And so I really had to do I was forced to do so much tee work, but then you kind of see the results of that. I'm like, okay, well, if I can do all these little things and get that result, that can probably transfer in other aspects of my game or of my life.
Definitely. Yeah. And then, I mean, it makes the winning process that much better, I would say. Right?
Oh, 100%. I
feel you put the work in, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's what it kind of comes down to, embracing the journey, is like knowing the things that you've done along the way to get to where you are. So, for example, I saw a podcast that was talking about like a hike. And so you don't just get to the top and be like, oh, that was an easy breeze, unless you're like on an easy hike or whatever. But most of the times, like, hikes are like, you got to find those cliffy, like, rocky, like hard winds, and maybe even there's snow or something like that. All those parts during the hike that make that hike hard to get to the top and be like, okay, I can take in all of this view and like the people around me and like celebrate at the top because I went through that hard journey of getting from point A to point B.
Yeah, it's like I love this concept of you have private victories and you have public victories.
Yeah. And
the private victories, those little wins that are going to get you to that big public victory, is so much more gratifying. Like, if from like a professional standpoint, like, oh, like you're doing all these little wins, you're staying late in the office, you're working on X, Y, and Z, and you're making that little bit of progress, and then all of a sudden, people see you with like the CEO position or the fancy car or the nice watch. Those are the public victories, but it's the private victories that got you there, and that's what people don't see, and that's what makes it 100% more gratifying.
I agree 100%. So how do you celebrate those small victories in your life? Because I know you have them. It's not just sports. It's professional as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's in every aspect of your life.
I would say, for me, it's a constant reminder that I'm having those private wins.
Okay.
And for me, it's the consistency with it and being like, okay, when you're checking off like those checklists of like, okay, now we're here and now we're here. So you have that big goal, and when you're checking off kind of those little goals to get to those big goals, that's where, for me, it's like, okay, yeah, we're getting somewhere.
Yeah.
I do this little, like I call it my big five, like the 5 things I'm going to do today. I do it for like for certain projects. I have my big 5 for like each of the projects that I'm going to do today. Or like if I'm at like the research lab, I have like my big 5 I'm going to do when I get into the office. And for me, if I can check off those big 5, it's like, okay, I've made progress towards my goal. It's a way of, I think, writing stuff out and being able to kind of track it it's kind of a way of tricking your brain to saying, okay, yeah, I'm doing something, I'm accomplishing something, right, versus just mentally checking it off. Yeah. There's something to be said about just right in the check mark.
Yeah. Absolutely. I totally agree. For me, it even goes to as small as making my bed in the morning. That's the biggest small win for me.
100%.
Every single morning I make my bed. And every single morning I feel good when I do make my bed. And that's like the difference. Because if I don't make my bed, then I'm like, oh, why didn't I make my bed? Why did I this, that, whatever. It just makes me feel good. The small wins. It just like, for some reason, give me a little bit of dopamine that I need to do my next thing in the day. Which is, I guess, what we're kind of talking about. Like finding those small things to keep you, what keeps you going throughout your day, throughout your journey, throughout your life to get those rewards.
Yeah, it's just checking off the boxes.
So as we kind of like talk about the process and enjoying the journey, is there a specific way that you can like find joys in the hard moments? You know, those really hard days where you don't want to go to practice, you don't want to go to the gym, you don't want to do those things. Like, how do you still find the motivation to get up and do those things? Because I know you do. I know I do. So,
for me, it's find a set of affirmations, a set of mantras, and just repeat it to yourself over and over again. All right, I'll pull up my mantras because I'll read them every morning. But when I'm on a run or something, sometimes I'll like yell at them. Like one is, I show up. That is my most powerful habit. Or another one that I'll usually yell on runs is like, I'm the hardest worker in the room. No one outworks me. Or my bare minimum is you are extra. I exude excellence in all that I do. So it's those things where it's hard, where if you just have, you don't even need like a whole bunch, like 3 affirmations that you tell yourself in the hard times. Like, no one outworks me. Like David Goggins. Have you ever heard of David Goggins? Like, you don't know me, son. That's a mantra. That's an affirmation of like, I'm in the suck. This is terrible.
yeah.
But, I'm the best. You're not going to outwork me.
Right.
Yeah.
It's that mindset. It's staying mindful of the fact that you can do hard things, I think. And then also staying present in those feelings, right? It's okay to feel like it hurts, it sucks, it's painful. Like, you're going to feel it. Every time I go and run, every single day, it sucks. I'm not going to lie. Like, I feel like sometimes I'll go for a run and it sucks a little bit less. But it still sucks. My lungs still burn every time. I still sweat like I'm taking a shower. Like, I go for a long runs. Like, that's what it's going to be every single time. You know what I mean? Same thing with the gym. Some days it's a little bit easier than the others, but like on those really, really hard days, you just like sit down and you're like, all right, you got this. Like, your mind is so powerful. And I think taking control of your mind and allowing yourself to just be in the moments of suck and embracing it allows you to go so much further.
Yeah, and if you're not one of those, I feel like, kind of rah-rah, like, pick-me-up type people, get technical with it. Like, from an athletic standpoint, like, I was on the rower the other day, and I hadn't been on the rower in, I think, years. And I just started to really get technical with it and kind of chunk it up the same way, like, when, like, I was doing a spreadsheet at the lab, and it's a lot of just copy paste numbers. It's very monotonous work.
Yeah.
But I told myself, all right, I'm going to give myself 90 minutes and we're going to crank this out.
Yeah.
And again, I guess a little bit, because I'm like, I'm going to stay present. I'm always present in everything that I do. Trick my brain and like lock in. It's just making those little challenges for myself.
And I think having that gratitude in each of those moments, knowing that you're able to go through this hard thing because of something else that you've been awarded, right? Like, good health, or like the ability to move your body a certain way, stuff like that, or gifts, or even like if you're an athlete, like your ability to have innate gift to play a sport, right?
Yeah.
The gratitude goes a long way. And that's part of mindset. It's also cultivating a positive mindset. If you go in every day and you're like, all right, I'm going to do the best I can do today, that should be the absolute like highest thing that you can say to yourself. I'm going to do the best I can today. Who cares about anyone else, right? If I'm doing my best, no one can come at me.
Yeah, work to the best of your ability. Give 100% of yourself. And 100% of yourself means, even if like you're maybe working on 30% of your capacity. Do 100% of that 30%.
Absolutely, because you're not going to be able to give 100% every day. You're not superheroes. Right? There's days where I can give literally 5%. But I'm going to give my best 5% out there.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
And it's all based off of your own. It's you versus you. We talk about this all the time.
Yeah.
It's not you versus your teammate. It's not you versus your coach. It's not you versus anyone else. It's you versus you. If you do a little bit better today than you did yesterday, it's a win. And I'll say this through and through to all my athletes. I don't compare you to each other. I compare you to you. You are doing so much better than you did in preseason. You are doing so much better than you did yesterday. You are having your own growth. Maybe someone else is having their own growth as well. And while you're growing, they're growing. And there's different levels of it. But you have to focus on you and keep a positive mindset for yourself. Because if you don't, there's what else you're just gonna fall through with all these thoughts and negativities and like why you shouldn't do certain things. You'll always find doubts. It's the easiest thing to find.
Yeah.
But on the other end, you can always find positive mindsets, positive theories,
Yeah,
things like that.
100%. You have to be be objective and be your biggest critic, but you have to be your biggest advocate as well.
Biggest supporter, absolutely. Like, I could support anyone through and through, but if you don't support yourself, then I'm not going to get through to you.
Yeah, 100%.
I definitely think that that's a big tool to have in your toolbox, a positive mindset. And that kind of goes into play with a lot of things that we've been
It's hard to get there. It's like there's so much. The motivational industry and the self-help industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Like, it is an industry. It's out there
growing as well.
Yo, 100%.
Look it up. It's like one of the fastest growing ways to, I don't know, influence people. Like,
100%. It really is, and it shows that people want it. People need it. People want to help themselves. Just sometimes they don't know how, or they don't know how to methodically kind of go about it. Because
it's to try, right?
Yeah,
you don't know what to try.
Yeah, it's like, what do I?
That's why we give a 500 different things. What works for me doesn't work for me. No one works.
Exactly.
Mina doesn't work for Noah, who's here last episode. So if you haven't checked that out, go back and look at that episode because it's pretty good. But you know what I mean. Like, there's different tools.
Yeah, and that's like we can only speak on what works best for us. Like, for me, it's affirmations and mantras. For someone else, it might just. I think I had one teammate who their thing was telling themselves like they sucked. Now, it was a very weird, and I don't recommend it, this mindset, but it's what got them in their jam. Like,
yeah.
I personally don't recommend it, but it's just whatever's gonna get your butt off the couch and get you going. And I'll tell you right now, it's gonna be some sort of intrinsic motivation. Like, I don't want to stay here anymore.
Yeah, it definitely comes from within. Along those lines, I think another kind of topic that goes along the lines of what we're speaking about is learning to embrace setbacks and challenges. So seeing your obstacles as something to grow upon, right? So I don't know if you have a story about some time when you had an obstacle and were able to see that obstacle and overcome that, and then also see the light from the obstacle. I don't know, maybe you have a story or something that you could share.
I do. I want to see how I want to phrase it. Probably the biggest setback I had was when I had dropped out of school. So that's coming from someone who was very academically motivated, very athletically motivated, and it was one of those things where you just are overreaching way too much, both physically and mentally. And I had to drop out of school. It was a very tough time. It was a very dark time. And when you're in those tough, dark moments where you're like, well, I'm like I was athletically at my best. I was academically I didn't snooze on my academics. Like, I was very focused, very motivated. And then you see just all the little pieces crumble, and you're like, oh. Next thing you know, your mom's picking you up at 11:30 at night from New Hampshire and driving back to Connecticut, and you're like, oh shit, like. And it comes from figuring out, okay, what went wrong? How can I be better? Like, what was and for me, I was just overworked, from high school, then going into college, then transferring. It was just go, go, go. So when I went back to school, I had to kind of take a step and know that this doesn't define me. People go at their own pace. And that's the big thing. You can't let your struggles define you. And knowing that it was okay to take a step back, it was okay to take a break.
Yeah.
And then, again, the problem solver that I am, I'm like, okay, so when we go back into this, when we jump back into academics, because I knew I wanted to finish school, how can we be better? And maybe it is an affirmation, maybe it's something that I always say. It's like, all right, we need to find the balance.
Yeah.
And I'll literally just go like this, like, let's find the balance of, like, if I'm going hard this week, okay, we got to make sure we're getting sleep. We got to make sure,
taking care of yourself.
Taking care of myself. And if we go hard that week, then let's go a little bit light. Again, everything is like a balance. So in finding that light, I think you find those solutions. It's, like self-worth, like knowing that you're, I'm trying not to ramble here.
Well, it's in those moments of probably like resilience and perseverance, right?
Oh,
so you didn't just sit back and, like, you had that setback dropping out of school. It would have been easy to just be like, I don't know if I finished my degree. I'll do something else. Whatever, that was my time. I failed. But with failure comes growth.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you have that mindset of, it's okay. Like, as long as I keep going and doing my best the next day or the next day and the next day.
100%.
Then,
those little wins.
Mm-hmm. Then you'll find that you've got your degree. And you're working one of your dream jobs, doing something you love.
That's crazy.
With people that support you and want to be around you and want to teach you and want to help you grow as well.
Mm-hmm.
Which I know I'm saying all these things because I've heard Mina talk about her career and fit she wears, stuff like that. That's why I can say those things. Because she went from that to this, where she lives now.
Make me blush over here. Like,
I know, it makes me a little, like, I just get emotional about it too. Like, seeing you from those moments too is like, from an outside perspective.
You've seen the whole journey, which I'm super grateful for. Not that you saw it, but that you've, stuck by me with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I believed in you. I think there's so many people that believe in you, and that's one of the things that really helps you as well, is having that support and people that believe.
Yeah, and again,
yourself.
Yeah. Well, and again, that's like Ailaina said, those are the public wins, like being at like one of the top. I'll say, I'll be a little not humble. Like, it's a very good, prestigious institute, and I'm grateful to be there, and doing a lot of other different things like this podcast and other projects. Those are the public victories. But the private victories,
they don't get to see all the.
They don't ones. You don't get to see all the private victories, and that's what makes all the difference.
Absolutely,
for sure.
I agree, 100%. Great story. Oh, you got me a little emotional there. Woo! Here we go.
I was really trying not to tear up. I'm like, no, we're gonna not do that. No, I was like, do I share it? I'm like, no, you guys deserve to. Vulnerability is power. So,
where'd you learn that? Whoa. No way.
Growth.
We love it. We love to see it. Mina's come a long way. So have I, honestly. I feel like young, like, I don't know, when we meet, like, young 20s. No, even before. Well, yeah, I was young 20s.
I think I was 9.
It was 9. Yeah, I was young. It was before, maybe 17.
This was, like, before 21. I think, or...
No, it definitely was well before 21. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We've grown a lot.
9. Yeah, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Babies.
Yeah.
Babies.
So
spry, talking about our goals. Look at us now.
Oh my gosh. Well, I think one of the first things Mina ever said to me was, like, she was talking about, like, your career should be something you're passionate about and your investment should make you money. And it's something that I've lived by for, like, so long now. So if that just gives you a nugget of wisdom, here we are.
Oh my gosh, I was probably 19 when I said.
Yeah, I think you're like, my mom said this to me one time. No, I'm gonna share with you, and then we move forward with it, and it was great, and I loved it. Thank you to your mom. She killed it. The nuggets of wisdom over here. She actually helped a lot with this podcast too. So props to your mom.
I know. We're gonna bring her on one of these times. She mentioned it to me the other day. I'm like, we'll get you on. We'll get a Mother's Day podcast.
Oh,
because our moms.
We were still talking about that. That definitely needs to happen in there
100%.
for sure. So I think the last thing that we'll wrap this up with is just celebrating your progress and your growth, which is what we just kind of talked about, which is perfect. The importance of like reflection and seeing things through, and then embracing the journey in order to see where you've gone. You know, see where you've come from to see where you're gonna get,
Mm-hmm.
and to keep doing that over and over, because it's not gonna stop. At the top of one mountain, you're gonna have to hike to the next one. You know what I mean?
100%. And that's life. Like, people think, you know, I'll use the entrepreneurial space, for example. Like, when everyone's like, I want to make, because it's out there and it hits me in the face constantly of like, I want to go and, you know, make millions of dollars and then I'm going to retire.
Yeah.
You want to make millions of dollars. Homeboy, you ain't retiring.
Yeah.
Like, that's a lifestyle. That is, like, if you want to get to that level, and not everyone wants to be at that. You don't want to be at that level. Like, life shouldn't be about just work. But if you want to get to that level, you're not just like making your millions and retiring. Like, life is not that simple.
Yeah. You can have a company to run and some things.
Yeah, employees. With more success comes more responsibility.
Absolutely.
And
that's how you grow. And that's kind of what we're talking about. As you keep moving through, there's always going to be a next obstacle. There's always going to be the next hurdle. And how do you overcome that? And how do you make it a little bit easier for the next time that you go through something that's challenging?
Mm-hmm.
So I think for myself personally, things that I used to think were challenging when I was 18 or 16 or 15 or vice versa, maybe even last year, are not as challenging as they felt in that moment.
And it's good to look back. I think it's very, very important to look back and reflect on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And see, okay, that's where I was. And this is where I am now. It's good to reflect, but don't stay there. Still look ahead while staying present. That's the game there. Respect what's happened. Be excited for the future.
But enjoy the journey.
Enjoy the journey.
Yeah. The present. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Well, it's been a great chat. Thank you so much for today and, you know, being vulnerable and showing us a little bit of your journey. I know that can be hard, and we support that. And we know how brave you are, and we are excited for what you do in the future.
I appreciate that, Ailaina.
Yeah. Let us know if you have any stories of things that you've overcome, how you overcome some challenges and obstacles in your life, and if you have any topics that you want us to come up with in the future, because we're chit-chatters, so here we are. But thanks again. This is Beyond the Cleats podcast, and we're signing off.